Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. The world might soon need to be saved from Diddy. Sean Puff Daddy, Diddy or not, Combs is going to be a free man in a few years. He was sentenced to 50 months in prison, 13 of which will be time served. So he's going to be in the Hooskow, allegedly, for the next 3 years. Some people say that's not long enough. Other people say for procuring some oil-drenched male hookers, that's too much time. And, of course, his legal team is going to mount a hearty appeal in this case. So let's talk about the sentencing, where he goes next. He wants to go to Fort Dix. Oh, I bet he does. I heard some of that testimony from the man whores. I bet he wants to go to Fort Dix. Josh Ritter is joining me now. He's a criminal defense attorney, and he is the host of two podcasts, Courtroom Confidential and True Crime News, The Sidebar Reports. Josh Ritter is also a newly minted Fox News contributor. Josh, welcome to Kennedy Saves the World.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
The pleasure is mine. So first, let's discuss, a lot of people were surprised that based on the lurid, salacious, disturbing testimony, they thought that he was going to get more time. But he wasn't convicted of the charges that would have earned him a life sentence, essentially. Was he overcharged?
Yes. Yes, unfortunately, he was overcharged, but he was also undersentenced. I think the sentencing by the judge was weak. I mean, honestly, yes, he was looking at life on the charges that they did not win, but he was still looking at 10 years apiece for the two charges that he was convicted of. So the idea that, as you just laid out, he might be out in 3 years is incredible to me, especially given everything that we know. I know that he was only convicted of a couple of charges, but the judge saw so much more, including that video with Cassie. And the idea that he was willing to give him, in my view, incredible leniency is pretty astounding.
So the judge sort of showed his hand at the sentencing hearing, and it sounded like he was leaning toward what the prosecution was asking for, which was, somewhere around 70 to 75 months in prison. And people thought that he was going to get upward of that. What do you think the factors were that led the judge to giving him a little bit more leniency?
I don't know. And I think you're right. First of all, the judge did not allow him bail in between the time of the conviction and sentencing. That was kind of the first indication that the judge planned on giving him a pretty heavy prison sentence. And then the judge did make several comments that made it sound like he intended to send a message. And the prosecution was asking for 11 years. Even the probation department had recommended more than what the judge gave him. So I don't know. The judge, in all his comments, talked about sending a message, talked about how he lived this life of privilege, how he had to understand that everything that he had done up until this point was wrong, and that, he's speaking for the victims. And then he kind of limps in there with a sentence that, listen, I don't want to go to prison for 4 years, but I still think that given what he did and what he was convicted of, the judge could have gone far above that, but he chose not to.
I know that there have been whispers that mysterious bags of money showed up for potential witnesses who did not testify in the case. Is it possible that the judge would have been influenced by an external factor?
Oh, God. Well, listen, would you put it past this man to attempt that? I don't think so.
No, I would not.
Yeah.
I would not put it past his team to do whatever they can to secure his freedom, because they still see a path forward to monetize this entire episode.
Oh, 100%. We're going to be watching some reality show based upon his time in prison if they don't get cameras into the prison already. Maybe that's why they're asking for the certain prison that they are. But I absolutely see him already scheming with his PR people to plan some sort of remarkable comeback from all of this. But I got to put a little bit of faith in this judge that some back alleyway bag deal was not taking place here, but I would not put it past Diddy's people that they thought about it, that they had some conference calls about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and talk to people like, who knows the guy? Do we know his gardener? Do we know his neighbor? Do we know his tailor? Is there anyone that can maybe have their little palms greased with some baby oil in order to give us a sentence that's a little bit more amenable to getting out before Diddy is completely white-haired? And it's kind of scary for advocates for victims of domestic abuse to know that this person is going to be on the street in 3 years. Do you think that some of his victims, those who testified in court and those who have filed suit, and maybe even those that are still silent, are they scared now?
I think so. I mean, to me, this is a win for this man. I mean, we talk about, oh, is he going to be contrite? Oh, has he learned his lesson? I don't think so. I think that he might even be emboldened by all of this. He was looking at life in prison. I had said that when he got arrested and he was denied bail, that was the last time he's ever going to breathe a breath of fresh air. And I'm completely wrong.
And you're a criminal defense attorney.
I thought it was game over for him. I mean, the feds usually, by the time they bring charges, especially in a case of this high profile, they've got all their ducks in a row. And so it was pretty astounding how their case kind of fell apart. And I think it was, to your point, that they overcharged it. And now the idea that he's going to be out in 3 short years, memories can be pretty short, especially when you have basically unlimited funds and unlimited power. And I can imagine, I could see him, a few years down the line, after the dust has settled from all of this, him starting to say, you know what? A lot of people turned against me. Where were all my friends when I needed them? How come these people didn't come to my aid? And how come these people testified against me? And it may not be outright violence, but he's still going to have some persuasion and power in the entertainment industry, and who knows what strings he might be able to pull.
Do we know how much money he still has?
I mean, he still has everything because they didn't seize any of it because this wasn't a financial crime. So he's still got everything short of whatever the million or few bucks he paid his attorneys. He didn't have to fork over any money for bail because the judge denied it. So that actually saved him some funds. I mean, yeah, a lot of endorsement deals have left, and there's future money has gone out the door. But everything he's made up until now, you got to imagine it's. Is he a billionaire? I don't know. I mean, it's got to be close to it.
I think on paper he was, but a lot of that was probably contingent on future deals and future sales. Certainly with Diageo spirits, but now, it's like you look at this, and he's going to have 3 years to contemplate it. He wants to go to a minimum security prison. Based on what he was convicted of, is that the typical path for someone who's received the sentence and the conviction that he has?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it's not considered a crime of violence, what he's been convicted of. That's what's funny, is that the crimes that he was charged with required, you have the racketeering charge, but then you had the trafficking charge, which required either force or fear. The jury didn't find that to be true. So what he was convicted of, what we consider the Mann Act, or this transportation for prostitution, doesn't require any of that force or fear. It just requires the actual act itself. And that's why I think it was so straightforward. They were able to prove it in this case. But because of that, it's not considered like a violent crime that might put him into some high max security. So the Department of Prisons, federal government's going to make those decisions, but I don't think the request for some sort of low security federal prison is something that's entirely extraordinary in this case.
Yeah, and he wants to go to Fort Dix in New Jersey, not only because it's a fun name to bandy about, but also they have a rehab program. Right. Do you think he's serious about sobriety and getting treatment for his substance and sex addictions?
I hate to be so cynical, but I mean, I read his letter to the judge, and he talks about how he lost his way. And then he puts together this highly produced video to play for the judge. To me, that is somebody who's for so long been able to either charm his way out of trouble, buy his way out of trouble, threaten his way out of trouble. it's not somebody who's truly contrite and truly, turning over another leaf. I think that all the tears that we saw from court, from the illustrations, is a guy who's now realized he's out of options. It is not a person who's realized that they've got real problems, because he had real problems. He lost his way for decades. That to me is not somebody who's lost his way. That's somebody that just got caught.
I don't know if he ever had a way to lose.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
So, okay, now I want you to put your defense attorney hat on. And, I'm sure you're able to look at this case as a rational person, a father, someone who has studied the law, but now as someone who defends unsavory individuals, it's really not about their moral character. It's about finding holes in the federal government's case.
Yeah.
So, what holes presented themselves to you?
They made a very interesting argument here about the crime that he was convicted of. Again, it's the Mann Act, but it's the idea of transporting someone across state lines for the purposes of prostitution. Their argument
Throwing
was
a couple of gigolos
right
in the back of the pickup truck and just driving to Arkansas.
driving to Arkansas and having a good old time.
Oh, yeah.
Their point was, listen, he didn't actually participate in the prostitution. He videotaped it. So in that respect, he's much more a pornographer than he is a person participating in prostitution. That this law wasn't really designed for his conduct. His conduct is much more an exercise of his First Amendment rights to videotape and record these types of performances. That even hurts my tongue coming out of my mouth, but it's a clever argument. It really is, and it might have some receptive ears when they get to an appellate court. But the funny thing about it, by the time this works its way through appellate courts, I mean, he might have served his sentence at that point. But he's got unlimited funds. He'll continue to fight it.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
That's interesting. It's like I'm always intrigued and, an advocate for protected speech that's protected by the First Amendment. And, there obviously is an argument for making and enjoying pornography, but those hookers didn't procure themselves.
Right.
It's not like he just showed up with a video camera and went, oh my God, there's man whores here? I love it. That's so fun. Is it my birthday?
Right.
This is amazing. Like, hookers are gross. Ew. But, I mean, as long as we're all here, I happen to have some baby oil and lube in my backpack. Let's do this. Like, that's so far-fetched because you had his former assistant and his girlfriend. Like, he decided which guys, it's like, and these are people who are obviously operating under romantic and professional duress.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, I gave him the drugs because he threatened to kill me.
Right.
It's like, yes, I let a male prostitute pee on me because he had abused me to the point and dehumanized me. And I felt like I was nothing. I had no self-worth, no self-esteem at all. Those aren't people who are like, I'm going to get Sean the gift that he's always wanted. And that's a second penis in the bedroom.
I mean, it's so sad, too, because...
That and the cardigan.
It's so sad because it's so difficult from a prosecutor's perspective to get victims to testify in these types of cases. I know from experience, just convincing somebody who's been abused and brutalized in this type of way to be like, I need you to come to court. I need you to talk about the most awful thing that happened to you. And by the way, somebody's going to cross-examine you about it. And here you have Cassie, who's been through about the worst type of abuse that we can all imagine, systematic and ongoing for years. She's 8 months pregnant, and she's still brave enough to go in there and testify in one of the most high-profile cases going on in the country against an incredibly powerful man. And despite all of that, the jurors didn't, I don't know if they weren't convinced by her or if they didn't feel that it was enough, but I really feel bad for her that she went, she was so brave to go through all of that, and it just didn't pay off the way she was hoping.
Yeah, and she knew in her heart that if she told the world
right.
what she had been keeping to herself for so long, that they would see the depravity, they would see the inhumanity, they would see her pain, and there is no way that they would let that man walk another free day in his life.
It was on
But
videotape.
then, it's like that's what millions of dollars in defense attorneys buys you. Is they go through everything and they craft arguments like, well, look at the text messages she sent to him. She was asking for it.
Yeah.
And, all it takes is a little bit of doubt in one or two people's minds. And they're like, yeah, that is pretty gross. Like, if it's as bad as she said, then she would have left. Same thing with Nicole Brown Simpson. The jurors in the OJ case looked at that and went, well, she should have left a long time ago. So I really don't feel bad for her. And unfortunately, that's how some people are conditioned to see the world. Yeah. And it sucks. And it's totally unempathetic. But I also think that's sort of a flaw with the prosecutors and James Comey's daughter is not anticipating that.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, and it takes some real skill, this idea of what is a circle of abuse and why would people behave in a way that, I imagine these jurors are saying, well, listen, if anybody ever asked me to participate in something like that and they were having, all these depraved acts done to me, I would just walk away. Mm-hmm. Well, would you? Do you understand the situation she was in and the coercion and the power and everything else and this idea of the cycle of abuse and how afterwards, yeah, she may have sent some text messages that don't seem logical, but what does that mean psychologically that was going on in her head? And they called an expert, the prosecution did, to try to explain that, but I just think, to your point, it's a flawed understanding and empathy of what these women really go through.
Yes, and it's like, so much of it boils down to jury selection, and it's interesting because normally these federal cases have a much higher conviction rate. What do you chalk that up to?
No, I mean, normally, like I said, usually the feds pass up so much, and usually by the time they decide to file something, they have done all their groundwork and they are ready to go, and the case against you is absolutely rock solid. And especially in a case this high profile, they're not going to, they knew the second they raided his home in LA and Miami, they knew the firestorm they were going to light off. And so they must have known that they better have their case ready. And I'm kind of shocked how they did seem to overextend themselves, especially when it came to this idea of racketeering. They were trying to convince us that this guy who's a maniac, but he's a maniac for himself. The idea that you're going to make this a criminal enterprise and everybody who's involved in it has this overall arching goal. And that goal is what? To help Diddy gets his rocks off? I mean, it just didn't kind of make sense.
But they didn't outline the enterprise, which
right.
If there's an enterprise, there's more than just one guy. Like,
Where
he may
are
be at
they?
the head of the syndicate,
right.
But, who are the lieutenants? Who are the captains?
Especially his right-hand girl, I forget her name.
Christina Coram.
Right. Where was she? I thought
I have been asking that this entire time because people I know who have known him and been in his inner circle and music and liquor and everything else are like, she's the chief of staff.
Yeah.
She's the one who knows everything. She's the one who would supply him with everything, allegedly, according to testimony. So why didn't they go after her? Did she have an immunity agreement with the feds?
Well, usually when you see these cases where it's talking about racketeering and conspiracy, it'll be the United States versus about 12 different people, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, this was U.S. versus Sean Combs and full stop, which made me think that means everybody's cooperating. And we're going to hear from all of those unindicted co-conspirators, and we're going to hear from her especially. And when we didn't, it made me, well, I don't, if they're getting immunity deals, the immunity deal would be for them to testify. So why didn't they testify? And if they're not getting immunity deals, why aren't they indicted? It just kind of, they seem like a very glaring absence from all of this.
Do you think that if he had been convicted of everything and he had been put away for life, they would have gone after her next? And now that the big charges didn't stick, now they don't have enough powder to go after her?
Maybe, but I also think the smarter strategy would have just been, if she's not cooperating, then indict her. Then just make it people versus Diddy and her, or whoever else wasn't going to cooperate. But, you got to imagine that they spoke to everyone and gave them a choice. Where, which side of this do you want to be on? And I can't imagine they chose the Diddy side. And if they didn't, again, you would have expected them to be witnesses in this whole thing. Maybe they bring charges on her. But like you said, they've lost the momentum now.
Yeah.
Now there's no enthusiasm behind this case.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens, Josh Ritter. Thank you so much for your time. Diddy did the crime. He's now doing some of the time. Not that much. He'll be enjoying himself, playing cornhole and knitting himself a lovely Christmas scarf, I'm sure. Josh, we will see you on the Fox News channel and all of your podcasts. Thank you for being a part of this podcast.
You're the best. Thanks so much.
You are. Thank you. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. Along with Josh Ritter, I'm Kennedy. Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.